Okay, I'll show a video. We can get started. I'll start with the video, so that way it gives some time to people to log in and get them acclimated with the site. I have two great videos. One is about the do's for resumes, and one is about the don'ts. And we'll start with the do's.
For the past 15 years, I've seen thousands of resumes, and I've been asked to review countless of drafts for clients and friends. I'm often amazed at the intensity and stress some people have in completing this simple process. Let's eliminate the stress and discuss the 10 rules for constructing an effective resume. But first, let's discuss what a resume really is. A resume is a letter to a targeted reader. Its purpose is to facilitate a conversation and serve as a basis for someone else to remember you and follow up later. It's also used for the interviewer to take notes. It's not an end to itself, so don't treat it that way. Now let's discuss the 10 rules for constructing an effective resume. Number 1, there is no perfect resume. You will have to spend some quality time on constructing and updating, but it's the perfect job you're looking for, so getting the basics down will be just fine. Number 2, you can have more than one resume. The job opportunities you will look at will vary, so be flexible and ready to tailor your resume to fit any given situation. Number 3, have an objective. Start your resume with an objective, which is your chance to tell the reader what you want. While you can have multiple objectives, the more specific you get, the better the reader will know what you want and will remember you. Number 4, state what you did. Employers are looking for people who can do things. It is essential to state what you specifically did at your previous job or internship, and it's a good idea to use action verbs. Number 5, do research. Take it from someone who's tossed more boilerplate resumes in the trash. You need to have a good idea about who you are giving your resume to. Don't let them feel you're wasting their time. Number 6, stay relevant. Keep the resume focused on relevant information. There's no need to include anything that doesn't pertain to your objective. Stay away from things like marital status, religion, politics, physical descriptions such as height and weight. Number 7, be specific. You want the reader to focus on things that matter regarding your ability to perform the job or accomplish the objective and nothing else. Number 8, be organized and to the point. It's a business letter, so use care as well as good sentence structure and correct English. And it's a good idea to have someone else review it for grammar and spelling. Number 9, don't be a job hopper. Employers like people who have a logical career progression. If you have several job changes, make sure you display mature reasoning in why you made those changes. Number 10, be yourself. After all this, it's important for you to express who you are. Remember, the purpose of the resume is to facilitate a conversation, and that's all. For more detailed help on resume writing, go to my resume basic training video. But for now, if you get a hold of a few sample resumes and review these 10 basic rules, you'll be off to a good start in creating a real effective resume. This is Rich Alexander, and thanks so much for watching.
So think of it as you trying to buy a car. When you read that ad in the paper, you're reading about the car, like how nice the car is. It has all these features. It has automatic windows. It's got AC. It's got sunroof. So when you're reading that ad in the newspaper, it's a marketing tool. A resume is a marketing tool, not a sales tool. So when you're basically marketing yourself to attract the reader or the buyer, and you're basically a product, and the buyer is your future employer. So it's really important to recognize that the resume is not going to sell you. You're not going to be able to sell, or get yourself the job with just the resume alone. It's basically to attract or lure the employer to know more about you. So it's really important to think to recognize that you're basically marketing yourself to get that opportunity to talk to the employer. There was a study I was just reading before this class that there was a study where some American research companies, recruiting companies, did research about how long does it take before the recruiter or your future employer, how long would they take reading your resume? And they've clocked it at an average of 6 seconds. So you got 6 seconds before someone throws your resume into the trash. You have to realize that these companies get hundreds and hundreds of resumes a day, and they don't have time to read all the details about yourself. I know that there are some people here that are international that are on this phone on this class, but in the U.S. It's really important that your resume is short and sweet, and I'll go through the presentation here. Now that we've officially started, I'll just tell a little bit about myself. I have a business degree from the University of Virginia, and I've worked at some IT companies. I have about 15 or 10 years of experience in the IT field. Prior to that, I was in the culinary field, working as had my own catering business. But I got into the IT field, and right now I'm working at CGI Federal. And that company has been working on the healthcare.gov website that you've seen on CNN and on the international and national news. I was on that project. I was assigned to that project as a quality lead. I helped implement new processes in software development and do metrics and statistical analysis on the performance of the website, and also on finding defects and how to strategize in fixing defects. So this is my background experience, and before I started at CGI, I spent a lot of time looking for a job, and it was really difficult because of my situation. I was living in Iran, and I came back, and a lot of companies didn't even give me the time for even a phone screen. So I spent a lot of time doing research and learning about how to write a good resume. I contacted a lot of people. There was a guy that was charging $600 just to revamp your resume, and I did that, and I wanted to learn how I could write a good resume and make myself presentable. As soon as I did that, I was getting calls like every day from companies just because of my resume, how it was written precise and well, and I was getting calls from various agencies and companies. And I was able to negotiate on the job that I wanted, and I got the job that I wanted, which was working for the one of the largest software projects in the world, which is the healthcare.gov project. So that's my background, and I really want to help other people find their dream job because it's really important to me, and I want to help you find your dream job as well. So here's one of the presentations that I had. The person that created this presentation, his name is Andre Luck. He's actually works for the career services. He's a career services manager, and he was one of the people that I met with to learn about resumes. So you can see the title of this presentation is How to Market Yourself on Paper. So this presentation is just to focus on how you're going to market yourself and how to make yourself more attractive in the job arena. I also have here my background. I do have a Lean Six Sigma. I'm a certified Lean Six Sigma green belt. I'm working on my black belt right now, and you can look that up. And getting those type of certificates can help you get the job that you really want. So let's go to the next slide here. So what is a resume? We made it clear that a resume is a marketing tool. it's the flyer that you would see in the grocery store, or someone who hands them out in the street and says, "Hey, I got this product. Come and see it. Come check it out." And it's not going to land you the job, but it's going to land you an opportunity to get an interview, and that's what it's for. So this resume also is a professional introduction. So you are selling yourself to the future employer and letting them know that this is what you have done. This is what you can do for the new employer. So like I said, the recruiters won't spend more than 6 seconds looking at your resume, and if you're not telling them what they want to hear, then they're just going to toss out your resume, and you've lost your chance with that company. And that's how it works in the U.S., and I've seen it with my own eyes. And hiring people for this project that I was working on, we'd go through about 50 resumes in a week, and we would just skip right through the ones that didn't sound like they were needed. And it could have been possible. Those people were very talented, educated, and were perfect for the job. But what was on the paper didn't tell us what we needed to know. So I'm going to help you try to make yourself, present yourself in more professionally, and give what your future employer wants, rather than just what just a bunch of extra wording that's not needed. Another thing is it's an aid in the interview preparation. So anytime you go to an interview, a face-to-face interview, or even when you get a phone call, so you might have an interview over the phone, which happens a lot these days, especially if you're looking for a job overseas, or if you're looking at a job in a different state and such. So always have that resume in front of you when you go for that interview, or whether it's on the phone or face-to-face. Have one for yourself, and have one for the people that are going to be interviewing you, because when they ask you questions, you want to just pick out the keywords from your resume and just reply back with those answers to your in the interview. So it's really helps you prepare yourself, how you can answer questions, and it's definitely an aid into the interview preparation. So again, make sure you print out color. Try not to use color, but colored paper. You just want to use regular white or off-white paper, and have it ready, and present it to the employer, and also have one for yourself. That's a key thing, and that's the main purpose of a resume. Some of the essentials here, and that we've kind of have talked about some of these things, but you want to think like the employer. So the employer is not going to spend much time trying to read and figure out what did you do. Using vague words is going to make it more difficult for them to figure out what you did. So if I had on my resume, I'm an IT consultant, well, that's not going to really tell the employer what I did. They're going to think about, they'll never know what I did because it's very vague. So you have to think like an employer. If the employer is asking for a specific job position, like for example, I think I saw someone have something about a resume writer. About let's say a data analyst, for example. And in their job description, they're asking for someone that knows SQL. Well, if you're trying to target for that job, your resume better have some information about SQL and some of those key requirements that they'll have in their request. So you got to think like the employer. They're putting something out there in the market, whether it's on their website or in the newspaper, and They are asking for specific type of qualities from you. So you need to think about what's going to attract them to be able to get that interview. Because your goal here is just to get the interview with the resume. It's not to land the job. It's just to say, just to get that interview. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about interview skills, but in this presentation. But we should have another one talking about interview skills. So you got to think like the employer. You got to convey a succinct message. So what is your message? If the job is asking for a teacher, and your message here is telling them that you know how to do IT, then you're barking up the wrong tree there, because you're going to be not. I mean, you might have the skills. You might have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or even a PhD, but that's not giving them what they want. And your message should be geared towards your teaching abilities. You know, how many students you've taught, how many classes you've taught. You know, what are the results, and that's what we want to get down to, because the employer wants to know what type of results have you done. Also, another thing, and I'll have an example. I'll show you of my own resume. I'll show you that, and I spent a lot of time, countless hours trying to make it perfect. And one of my mistakes was make every word count. Okay, my English is not perfect. I'm not an English major, and I had a pretty bad resume, and I'll admit it. I had a bad resume. It had too many words in it. There were a lot of sentences in there that were not needed. It just made it so busy that the employer would. That's why I would never get a call, because it was just so busy. It didn't make sense, and the words were not carefully selected. And I'm going to give you a list of words that you can look at. So, for example, let me give you an example. For example, I had I was doing implementing CMMI on multiple projects, right? And my first word that I used was implemented CMMI level 5 on 5 projects. Well, when I say implemented, that's great, but using managed is much more powerful. So I swapped that word, just one word, and using that one verb, changing that one verb makes a whole lot of difference. And you're not exaggerating. We're not exaggerating here. You know, we really did manage. I really did manage implementing and manage the implementation of CMMI, but I just put managed CMMI implementation on several projects, and that has a stronger action verb, and you want to go with that. So make every word count. Don't put in long sentences, and just be careful about the words that you select in your resume. The most important information at top and on the left. So when you're looking at a resume, and let's say that you already have 10 years of experience, or even 7 years of experience, you don't want to put your education on top. I see a lot of people make that mistake, because that's kind of a given. You know, that's not what's going to sell you. What's going to sell you is what did you do, and telling them that you've gotten a bachelor's degree or a master's degree is not going to sell the employer the way I would recommend using the education on top only if you're right out of college, you're just starting to get a job, you don't have much experience, then you would want to put the education on top. But if you have enough experience, then you want to highlight that, not your education. Education go on the bottom. Another important thing, and I'll show you in my resume, is that you want to have an objective. Some people, there's different types of resumes, and we'll show you the differences. So I'll tell you what should be on top. And if you, I think I have some of your resumes, and you can email them to me. Let me put my email here. And you can email them to me, and I'll give you some advice on it. And there's no charge for this. We're doing this for the sake of Allah, and we want to help people to improve their skills. So please, you can send me a resume, and I'll shoot you back comments if I don't have it already. The next thing here is this is very important, is the white space. So if you're looking at a resume, and I'll show you an example of that. You can have too little white space and you can have too much white space. So you want to just find the right fit. I mean, right when you look at a resume from far away or from a 2 feet distance, you should be able to see that it's very it's not too busy and it's not too empty. So you have to find the right balance, the right ratio between white space and not white space. And what I mean by white space is that you don't have like double spacing between your bullets. You don't have too much margin going off to the left and right. You don't have too many sentences going on in one bullet. It should be straight and direct. So I'll show you some examples on that. Another thing is I highly recommend is do not use resume software or templates. Those can really mess it up, and it looks kind of out of the box type of resume. And I've seen people try to copy things, words for they just copy sentences and try to rewrite them into the resume, and that really makes it. People can read through that really quickly, especially people with experience. Especially recruiters with a lot of experience, they can tell if you're just trying to make up a story or something, or you've copied it right out of a book. It's not going to help you. It's just going to make things worse. So be honest in what you're writing, and talk about and think about what you've done and put it on that paper. So and avoid any like software or templates that you get out of Word, especially. Just use a really basic, simple template for yourself. I can, when I look at your resume, I can show you give you some examples of good templates, and we can look through that. So the other thing here, and this is where I made other mistakes in my resume, it needs to be easy to read in the design. So just like building a house or a car or something, if you overcomplex the design, it's going to crash. It's going to fail on you, and there's always room for error. So keep it very simple. For example, when you have the different font or the bold headings, just use one style. Don't go crazy and try to put in red font or on one side or even the bold headings. Just use the same sequence throughout the resume. And you can see in Word, if you're familiar with Microsoft Word, it'll tell you what kind of bold headings you're using. So just make sure it's consistent in your resume. So that means when you have talking about your experience, you have a bold heading for experience and you have one for your objective. Those should look alike. They should not look different. They should have the same size, same color, same boldness, or not bold, whatever you want to use, but it should be the same. The other is use bullets, and don't use funky bullets that will that are going to be not easy to, or just look too fancy. You just want to use something very simple and professional, like what you see in this presentation. Just use a regular black box bullet, because they're not going to care how fancy your bullet is. It's what the content is. So use bullets as much as you can, because you're getting to the point and you're stating something in a short and meaningful way. The next thing here is appropriate font size and type. So please don't use any unusual font in your resume, like cursive or something that's going to just throw things off. And the type as well. So don't use something super large in one area and super small in another area. All the bullets should have the same size font and the same type. Don't use, for example, Arial in one area and then Times New Roman. I guarantee if you make those little mistakes in your resume is going to be in the top of that trash can. They're going to dump it right away. So just those little things, and I'm telling you from my experience, if when we see a resume that has one little error, even a missing period in that resume, you are not going to get that job. It's just not going to happen. The recruiter's going to ball it up and trash it in the trash can. So you have to be very careful, and I would recommend that you have someone, one of your friends review it, or even take advantage of the career services that you went to universities at. They'll even do it online. So you can contact them or just contact me, and I'll review it and make sure that you're not missing any commas, you're not missing any periods. You got all your T's and I's, all your T's crossed and all your I's dotted. If you're missing one, if you have one grammatical error, then you've lost your chance. So just make sure you treat it like a little baby and make no mistakes. There's different types of resume formats. I was trying to upload a document here. Let me see if I can upload it now. The internet was running slow, but let's see how I can show you an example. So while that's uploading, so there's three types of resumes that we mainly use in the U.S. I'm not familiar with if you're living in Dubai or if you're living in Pakistan or different countries overseas. I'm not familiar with those type of resumes. I knew they use a CV mainly in European countries, and they tend to be longer and they tend to have more personal information. But if you're trying to apply for a job in the U.S., you do not want to use a CV. Companies just recruiters are not familiar with those type of resumes, and they can already tell that you're sending it from overseas. So there's three types of resume formats mainly used in the U.S. The first one is chronological. So you're listing your history or background in reverse order, meaning what is your most recent job. You never want to put your oldest job first. And I think I've seen in CVs that they do the opposite. They put their oldest job first, and they go down. So they go into ascending order, not descending order. So you want to go in descending order. You list your most recent job first, and that should be consistent throughout your resume. So if you're having if you're talking about your experience, then you want to start with your newest job and your oldest job last. If you're talking about your education, you start with the most recent degree that you've gotten, and then go down to the oldest education that you have. So make sure it's consistent and you're doing it in descending order. So this is a chronological, most typical type of resume that you'll see out there in Monster.com and everywhere. The other one here is a functional. So this is more useful for people that have a lot of experience, maybe 10 to a decade of more experience, and that's where you get into you're talking about your skills at the top of the resume rather than just your experience. So you might have, you might be really good at Microsoft Word. You don't need to state that, 5 times if you've worked at 5 different companies. You just basically put those type of skills that you have that are overlap with your other positions into the top area. So you might want to put like expert in Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or Microsoft PowerPoint, those type of things on the top, so that we don't have to repeat it throughout the resume. You just put it on the top. And this works great for people that have a lot of experience, and so you can do that way. There's another one where you do a combination of both, and that's what I've done. And in my resume, it's a newer approach where you take some of your skills and put them on top, and then put some other skills that are specific to that job that you did in your bullet points. So I'll show you an example of that in a few seconds. Looks like this Harvard document is not able to upload, so I'll share my screen in a moment. Just give me a minute. Oh, here it's uploading. Here it is. So you can see this here. This is a resume and cover letters from the Harvard Business School. And let's see. So we were talking about action verbs. Let's just zoom into that. So when you start a bullet point, you want to start with one of these action verbs. For example, enhanced or established, maintained, managed. So rather than just saying, I did this, you want to start with an action verb to give you a kickstart into what you've done in your old position. There are some resume tips, and let me just go over these because these are pretty important. Let's see if I can make this screen. Okay, excuse me one second. Okay, here we go. So resume language should be specific rather than general. So if I say I'm an administrative assistant, like we were talking about, we want to make sure that I want to turn that around and say, I managed large office with filing documents or scanning documents. So you want to get down to the specific of what you did rather than just being more general. Be active rather than passive. So it's like saying the house was struck by lightning. You don't want to say that. You don't want to say it in that passive voice. You want to say lightning struck the house. So you're turning that around and making it more powerful and making it into a more active statement. Written to express, not impress. So this is a good tip here, where you want to explain what you did, and don't try to over exaggerate what you've done, but you should take credit for the things that you actually did. Articulate than rather flowery, so don't try to use poetry in your resume. Just be more articulate and stick to the point. Fact-based. This is really important. Quantify and qualify. So if you are managing an office, you might want to state that how many, for example, how much revenue this office was taking in. So you manage an office that was you're managing a $10 million office. If that doesn't quantify it, then you want to use something else. Maybe not in dollar amount. Use something else that might be significant to the reader. So again, you have to think about who your employer is, or who you're sending that resume to, and find out what hits them. For example, if you're I'm using an example again as a data analyst. So you can talk about how you've written 50,000 lines of code in 2 years. So that's something that you can quantify, and it might be important for the reader. Written for people who scan quickly, so you got to get to the point. Don't make it a big story. Again, in the U.S., we always use one page. So I know in Europe or other countries they use multiple pages, but try to stick to one page. If you have a lot of experience, or if you have a PhD, then that's where you would want to go into multiple pages. But if you have, like myself, like 10 years of experience, then stick to one page. Make it simple, because they're going to be flipping through a lot of resumes. So the don'ts here is don't use personal pronouns such as I. You want to avoid using I. Even in the email, when you're sending an email to request for an interview, but in the cover letter you can use that. You can use I. Abbreviate. So it says here don't abbreviate, but if you're talking about like SQL, you don't need to spell that out. Or if you're talking about CMMI, you don't need to spell that out, because the person that's hiring you already knows what that is. So you can abbreviate when it's necessary. But if you're using an acronym that no one knows, or you don't want to put, or if you don't want to abbreviate to like manager, you never want to abbreviate those type of words like nouns or verbs or something. So you want to keep those. But if you're using, I would say here, when you're using an acronym, you can use an acronym where it's an industry standard. People know it. Like if I put in LSS in my resume, they probably wouldn't know what that is, even if because that's not such an industry. But what it means is Lean Six Sigma. So don't use a narrative style. Don't try to tell a long story. Numbers or letter categories, try to avoid those. Don't use slang or colloquiums. In the U.S., we do not like to add a picture or talk about the age, sex, or religion on here because of discrimination laws. So if someone puts in a picture in their resume, most of the times in the U.S., they're not even going to look at it because they could potentially be sued because of racial discrimination or racial profiling. So you don't want to put a picture in unless it's absolutely necessary. But you're not going to find that in the U.S. at all. So if you're trying to get a job overseas, then yes, you can probably put in a picture, but I would definitely recommend not to. Don't want to talk about your age or whether you're a male or female. Just keep it where there's. It doesn't make the your potential employer uncomfortable as well, or give them the chance to even become discriminatory against your resume. So remove those type of personal things from your resume. Do not include that. And also the list of references, you don't want to add that as well because if it's going to make your resume much longer and longer than necessary. So just put on the bottom, as requested or some type of terminology like that, or don't even put anything, and they'll ask you for references if they need it. Top 5 mistakes why resumes get dumped in the trash for very simple things. I was actually competing with this person for Blue Cross Blue Shield, and there was two of us that made it to the interview sessions, and the person that I was competing with actually got thrown out because she put in she had a spelling error. She missed like a comma or a period or something ridiculous, and they didn't accept her because of that simple little error. And so that's probably the top mistake is not being careful in your resume, and people take that seriously when you're applying to their job, applying to their company. Another thing is missing an email or phone number, so they'll never be able to contact you. Again, using passive language rather than action words. Not well organized, concise, or easy to skim. It's too long. So those are the type of things that most people, I see common mistakes in people's resumes. So again, be consistent in the format, content. Make it easy to read and follow. Use spacing, underline, italics, bold, and capitalization for emphasis, and to kind of separate things in the resume. Only when necessary, and make it consistent. List headings such as professional experience and order of importance. With headings, list information in reverse chronological order. So this means descending order and putting your most recent first. Avoid information gaps. I had a problem in my resume where I had a situation where I took 1 year off and traveled overseas. So when I came back, I got some different. I had a couple resumes. Actually, I had 2 or 3. So I'd highly recommend. I don't see this in this list here, but have 2 or 3 resumes ready, because if you're going for say you're going for a teaching job, you want to have that resume specific to the teaching job, but you also have experience in administrative jobs as well. So you want to maybe have 2 resumes, one for teaching and one for administrative. So that way, when you are looking for the job that you're looking for, you can send that one out rather than the other one out. I had a person that was trying to get hired for a job at CGI, and he actually had 2 resumes, which was good. He had a project manager resume, and he had a business analyst resume. So for the business analyst resume, he used. For the business analyst, the position that was open, that we had open for, was a PMO position, more like a project management office. So unfortunately, when he sent the project management office, the project manager resume to that PMO, it didn't work for him. The people that were looking at the resume was like, well, he seems great. He seems like he has a lot of skills, but he's overqualified for this position, and he's not going to be happy in this position. And that's the way they look at it. So make sure you have a couple resumes available. So that way, when you submit your resume, you submit the proper resume to the position that you want to get. So here's a sample resume. This is I was talking about education up front, and I would I prefer, unless you go to like Harvard or something or Princeton, then maybe you want to put it up front. But this should be on the bottom. If I was looking at this resume, I don't care. I mean, personally, if I'm a recruiter, I don't care where you went to school, unless you're trying to go for like a teaching position. Then maybe that's important. But this education should be on the bottom. Professional experience, you can see that the person did a great job with the bold, so it separates each of the professional experience, the companies that he worked for, and he stated where the location is, and he put the date and the year and present. So this is the type of chronological order that we want to see. He put his role, what his role was in the position, and just got down to the 4 bullet points. That's all it took to explain what he did, and that should be enough to explain what you did at any job that you went to. So you can see down here, this person had some publication and did some community service work as well. So I know if you're I think we have some people here that are about to graduate high school, so it's your opportunity now to get into community services and put those into your resume. Those are going to help you. If you did tutoring, or if you haven't yet, then you should think about that. So you can put it on your resume. If you are president of a club, those are the type of the things that you want to use. If you're just fresh out of high school or college and you're trying to get a job, then you want to use those type of credentials in your resume. If you only have 10 years, you don't need it. I took it out of my resume because I don't need it anymore. So that's another way to look at it. This is another type of format. So you can see this is like a really simple, easy to read, bullet point, chronological order. And this person did a similar thing, just a little different in the font. And my mouse got caught up here. But so they got really wordy here. And I would avoid trying to, this is a big bullet point. A bullet point should be straight to the point. So for someone trying to read this in less than 6 seconds, they're going to get a headache. And so this is actually a good example from Harvard University, but also a bad example that they put into their sample resumes. So avoiding it. But what I do like about this is the second bullet, and he got to the point, or she got to the point where she said that she coordinated annual unit conferences for 60 plus MBA professors. So that's giving me a quantifiable achievement and results. So those are the type of that's a good example here where you want to quantify your experience. Here's another one. This is pretty good. This is this person started with a summary, and this is probably the way I would do my resume in more of this fashion, where you have the summary up on top. Education is not here, and this person appears to have a lot of experience. And everything I see, every bullet point, there's something quantifiable here, and that's this is going to definitely catch my eye here. And I probably would ask this person to come in for an interview. And I've only read like one bullet so far. So the name here is bold up on top. There's not much white space. There is some white space, so it doesn't look too busy, but it's a good balance. And this person actually has 2 pages, which is okay because she does appear to have a lot of experience, and she did a great job in explaining what she did. So I would give her credit for that. She put her technical skills on the bottom, which I would recommend as well. Hardware, she split them up in 3 categories. So sometimes you'll see people just put technical skills and have a bunch of bullet points, but this is even better. It categorizes it. So if she's trying to do, if someone's trying to figure out if this person has networking skills and she's applying for a networking job, they can see that she has those skills, or what kind of software she has experience in. So this is a great resume that you could take and model as well from your resume. Here's another one. Again, education is on top. not my favorite, but here is a kind of, I would say this is more of a functional type of resume. It's maybe a cross where this person doesn't have bullet points, but they kind of explain it in like a really short detail of what they've done. So you can go this route as well, but I think this is more of a traditional, older style type of resume. Bullet points are much more the way the society is now. They just want to read things quickly and fast and see results. So that's something you probably don't want to. I mean, it's up to you, and you want to think about again who you're going to apply to, and that's the most important thing. Is that you hit the key points that your future employer is looking for. So resume characteristics, you want to focus on what you want, on the job that you want. So you need to know on what do you want to do first. You might like to do software engineering, but that you don't have any experience in that, and so it's going to be difficult to get into that field. So you got to explain on what you want, focus on what you want first, and then what you can do for the employer. And if you think about that, you can come up with your objective and explain what your objective is in this, or have a professional summary. So you could do either one. I've seen some with objectives. They want to be like it's kind of like a vision statement of your career. It's actually pretty interesting. I had to come up with a vision statement, and I used different companies around the world like Sony and LG, and it was really amazing to read their vision statements. It was very inspiring, and those type of vision statements go a long way. So if you can come up with a really good objective or a vision statement, then that can make a whole lot of difference in the resume. And you can put that on the top as well. So the professional experience summary, I have this in my resume, so I have bullet points of what I've done and what experience I have, things that overlap, and things that can highlight what you have experienced. Focus on achievement and results. We talked about that. There's an example here: duties and responsibilities. So which one sounds more attractive? Responsible for maintaining accurate inventory. That doesn't really tell me anything. How accurate were you? Were you really that accurate? I mean, what is accurate? And how are you? What were you maintaining? So what kind of inventory were we maintaining? So those are the type of things. It's very vague. Doesn't get to the point. But if you look down here, you can see vastly improved customer service while cutting costs by 24% by accurately managing inventory. So, okay, that makes sense. Now I know what you did, and this is how well you did it. So you want to try to turn this type of these sentences into action sentences with results. Group information logically. When you're putting in your skills, and I'm sure most of us have great skills in Microsoft. So you want to put all your Microsoft together. You don't want to have one Microsoft here in the first and one at the bottom. So just put things in the proper order. Computer skills. So yeah, so you can see here. So this is you see how this person. There's two examples here. The bad examples up on top, the good examples on the bottom. So you can, if someone has some computer skills, you can group it up like we saw in the Harvard resume. Operating system, so those are the type of skills you have in that, and the applications. So break it up, make it easy to read, and it also creates better visual and design in your resume. So just a few reminders, very simple things. The resume length. Stick to one page at all times, unless you got a lot of experience and you maybe have a PhD or something. Then go with then you can break the rule of one page and have 2 pages. No more than 2 pages though. I would recommend. resume length also. So if you have like 10 years of experience like myself, I've cut out some of the old jobs that I had, so I'm only sticking to my last 3 jobs. So I had a lot of jobs, and I'm not going to put them on there because it just doesn't make sense to the person, and it's old and outdated. So stick to the key things on your resume. Do not staple. So if you're going to bring in your resume, never staple it, or just bring one page in a nice folder if you're going to make that interview. One-sided only. Don't put. If you do happen to have 2 pages, do not print on double-sided. People don't like to flip things over in a short amount of time. They just want to flip through. Action words. So stick to the action words, like we saw earlier. Like saying responsible for tracking inventory. No, don't use that type of wording. You want to say manage the inventory, and that's more powerful. Use a high quality printer. If your printer is running out of ink, don't think you're going to save yourself, $10 by printing on cheap paper, or you're running out of ink. Go to the store or go to a local print shop. Have it printed nicely. Print a couple copies. I always recommend print one first. Review it with a friend on paper, and so that way you can make edits before you go and print like 10 resumes. List references on a separate sheet, so have that ready when you do when you do create your resume. Already, you should have one that has a similar format, similar font on a separate sheet of paper, so if they do ask for it, you can send it right away without any hesitation. The resume is not going to land you the job, and I mentioned it a few times in the presentation here. The resume is to get you an interview. It's giving you a chance to talk to the employer. So no matter how good your resume is, they're not going to call you and say, "Oh, you got the job." That's not going to happen unless you're like a superhero or something. So the resume is only giving you an opportunity to get you the interview. Once you get the interview, then you're going to sell yourself. So the resume is a marketing tool. And then once you go into the interview, then you're selling yourself. So you got to think about it that way. Just like I said about the car advertisement. So if someone's trying to sell you something in the newspaper, like they have 50% off, that's going to get you your foot in the door. And then once you got your foot in the door, then they're going to say, "Oh, well, look at this. Try this out. Taste it. See how it looks." And then they're going to sell it to you. So the resume, again, is a marketing tool. And it's to get you an interview. That's the main purpose. It's giving you an opportunity to talk to the person face to face, whether it's on the phone or face to face. So don't get disappointed if you don't get the job because just by sending your resume out, because that rarely happens. But you should be happy if someone gets in touch calls you and says, "Hey, we want to set up a phone conference, or set up a phone screen, or have you come in for an interview." That's your ultimate goal, is just to get that interview. And the resume is there to do that for you. So actually, I have one more thing to show you. I have my resume. I want to share that with you. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'll show you the difference. So the resume that I had prior was the one on the right, and as you can see, there's not much white space. It's very busy. You see how my sentences are. They're very busy, and there's no space between them. So I wasn't getting many opportunities in this for job interviews, just because of the way it looked too busy. I did get a few, but not as much as I want. But as soon as I changed it over to this one here on the left, you can see I have more spacing between my bullets. My font's even a little bigger, so it's easier to read. I put my professional summary here in bullet points to hit the key points of the employer. You see I have my name large up on top. I put my the job. So there's a little trick here. So if you're looking for a job, you want to, if they have a position open, for example, for a business analyst, that should be in this this area here. You should be tailoring your resume to the employer's needs. So I was actually just applying for Amazon.com, and I put in exactly what they were looking for. They were looking for a quality process consultant. So I just changed it a little around a little bit and put that there. And I have my bullet points here, and I tailor it a little here and there just to make sure it fits their needs. And you can see I have my skills and certifications. I just broke it out into those two just to make it simple. And I have my education here down on the bottom, and have my GPA average, which is okay. Having your GPA there or your score at your education, but very easy to read, very very simple. So yeah, there's a good question. If you're in the U.S., yes, I would put that you're a U.S. citizen on your resume. They do ask for that a lot, and if you're in the U.S., because of they don't want to worry about whether they have to sponsor you or not, and a lot of the jobs will already say in their profile, they'll ask if you're a U.S. citizen. So you might as well just get that question out of the way, so that way they don't have to ask you that, or they don't turn you down. They don't cancel that resume cancel your opportunity for interview because of that. So yes, put in the U.S. If you're a U.S. citizen. Put that in if you have that. If you don't, then leave it out. And if you're trying to work, if you're from overseas and you want to come into the U.S. and work, then you'll have to be honest. And but you can leave it out. Don't put in what citizen you're from or what citizen you are. Leave it out. Yeah, that should answer your question there. But that's a very good question. Just try to don't be just follow those key steps, and I guarantee that you'll get a job. And you should be confident that you can get the job that you want. And that's probably the most important thing here. Even though you might have a good resume, you got to have the confidence in yourself as well. And even if you worked at a simple shop, you got to be proud that you did that, and have a confidence that you have the experience to take on the next job. So that's probably one of the best things you can have, is the confidence in yourself. Thank you very much, and I'm glad everybody attended. And if you have any questions, please email me, and we'll probably have another session on interviewing, improving your interviewing skills as well. For the people that sent me the resume, I'll take a look at it, and I'll send you some comments within a week or so. Thank you very much, and have a good night. Bye-bye.